Mitch, while we're talking about you, back in 2011, you interviewed Tom, and you called him a new breed of owner in a town where franchises don't change hands very often. Not everybody knew what to expect, but maybe you can talk a little bit about his organization and how it's been different from some of the other franchises you've covered over your career.
Well, firstly, in fairness to the franchises here in Detroit, they've all been great. I mean, Mike Ilitch and now Chris Ilitch, Bill Davidson, the Ford family. We're really blessed, actually, in Detroit to have owners who are vested in the community, invested in the city. And I think when I wrote that, having not known Tom and only done that interview, there was skepticism about, well, okay, he's got roots here, but he doesn't, you know how we are in Detroit, if you don't live a block away, you know. And so, of course, living in Los Angeles and having, you know, everybody heard about how big a house Tom had or whatever, and we tend to form opinions of outsiders, insiders. I've been really pleased to discover that and maybe it's the ability to fly as fast as Tom can fly, but he's really as much of an insider as if he lived here. And I think that really became apparent to me when I met Arn. Arn and I have a mutual friend, and so I knew he was coming ahead of time, and before Arn even settled in, we met and I talked a little bit about Detroit. And I said, wait a minute, you were hired to do what? He said, I really want to make sure that Tom's interest and the Pistons are involved in the city of Detroit. And I said, that's a job? He said, yeah, and a big job. And I think from that point forward, it became very apparent how vested Tom was in the city, and this wasn't just going to be a flip investment of a sports team, as some owners do, but a real investment in the community. And that has just played itself out as witnessed here, and what you mentioned about our State Detroit Clinic, which I'm happy to, about our Lipke Center, which I'm happy to talk about if you want, but it's really proven that Tom is extremely invested in this community, and I believe is here for a long time.
Great, thank you. So you mentioned Arn. Arn, welcome.
Thank you.
You're the man on the ground, right? You're the guy that's in the community.
I'm short. I'm very close to the ground.
You're very close to the ground. And from Los Angeles. Well,
Philadelphia first, so I have a real city behind me.
You know where you're from? Philadelphia, yeah. Los Angeles, Detroit. What's your experience been in Detroit?
It's been incredible. I tell people, and I've been here now a year and a half, I think actually today is my year-and-a-half reunion, that I feel in that time I've grown closer and more a part of this community than I did in 35 years in living in Los Angeles. It's been incredibly warm, welcoming. People are just so great, and I'm really excited to be part of this community.
That's awesome. Mr. Mayor, bingo. Big marketing team on that one.
Yeah. I'll tell you, the organization that I'm now heading up is all about young African-American boys.
And mentorship. The
mentorship program. And when I left the mayor's office and wanted to do something else in terms of giving back, this was what I thought would make the biggest impact. Because most of these young boys don't have a man in their life. They're 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. Most of them are from Detroit public schools. And we've been able to get commitments from black men to be the mentor for these black boys. We're now up to about 75 boys, and it's really, really going well.
And didn't you have a big, you just signed your 100th mentor?
We signed the 100th mentor. Now we've got to match them up with the boys. We got enough boys in queue. So in the next 30 days or so, we will make those matches, and things will heat up again.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about what your relationship with Tom and his organization has meant to Bingo and to your program.
Well, you know, you look at the financial commitment, which is obviously important. But even more important than that is he's opened up the Piston organization for our boys to see from the inside that it's a business, not just a sport. And so our boys have had the chance to go out, you know, Arn made this available for us, where they've gone into every facet of the Piston organization, because most of them want to be a professional basketball player. But we have to let them know if you want to get in the game, there are a lot of other avenues that you can look at. And so they've exposed our boys to that. And now a lot of these boys are looking at the fact that maybe, you know, I can run an organization one day, maybe I can own an organization one day. And, you know, and that's what they need. They need the exposure that gives them the opportunity to think big.
So they're already angling for Arn's job.
I'd like to have that one, but that's another story.
You heard it here first, folks. Dr. Mona, we just happen to be in a place where rock stars play all the time, but you've become quite the rock star. You know, doing such great things in Flint. Talk a little bit about how the program's going and what it's been like to have somebody like Tom and his organization and Arn, you know, at your back.
Absolutely. So, you know, when the crisis hit Flint, when we were able to prove that there was this widespread lead contamination for really 18 months unchecked. If you know anything about lead, it's this potent, irreversible neurotoxin. It's the last thing that you want your community to be exposed to. But from that moment on, our commitment was to tomorrow. It was to the tomorrows of our children, and how are we as a community going to come together and preserve the tomorrows of our kids. And we recognize the need to surround our children with interventions and resources to wrap them around, to really flip that story, so that in 5, 10, 15 years, we're not researching kind of the outcomes of lead, which is something we know, but really researching how we can be a center of excellence and to mitigate this and to prove to the world that our Flint kids are going to be okay. There was no other option than to do everything we could for these kids who did nothing wrong than just live in the wrong city at the wrong time. And this was not an easy task to embark on. We needed a lot of resources, we needed a lot of support, and we needed you know, people to help us. And I think one of the first folks that came to our aid was Tom and Arn and the Pistons League and so many amazing athletes. So disclaimer, like I have no athletic knowledge at all prior to Flint. I was a big geek dork, studied a lot. But after this Flint crisis erupted, I think my closest friends have been those, you know, at the Pistons, with the NBA, different athletes who have come back or have no connection to Flint at all. And this issue has resonated with them, and they're giving and they're giving. We've had a lot of celebrities come in and out, but Tom and his team have been there, and they continue to be there, and they keep asking, what can we do next? What can we do next? There is a clear, innate commitment to the children and to the city.
That's great. Mitch, are you a little uncomfortable? Absolutely. Being on this side of the questioning?
No.
You doing okay?
You're doing well.
All right.
This is much easier, actually.
Talk a little bit about Lipke. Obviously, it's a passion project. You've been able to pull together organizations that haven't worked together before, created a wonderful platform, making a big change. Tell us about what's happening.
Well, Say Detroit has grown. It's entering its 11th year now. It started basically out of homelessness during the Super Bowl when I went and spent a night at a homeless shelter, wrote a story about it, tried to raise some money for people who we were kind of shoving into homeless shelters to keep off the street so that they wouldn't bother the customers during the Super Bowl. And I was just trying to raise enough money to keep them in the shelters, and I ended up with a lot more money than that in just 10s and 20s and things like that. And so we formed Say Detroit, and it grew and it swelled, and we started not only dealing with homelessness, but veterans and seniors and all that. And we tried to lay it out so that everything we do leads into the next thing. So we're not just taking care of a group of people at a certain age, but then forgetting about them for 20 more years, and there's all these other problems. And so at some point when we had sort of infants and young school-age children, and then veterans and people needing houses and things like that, we saw that there was a gap between like ages 8 to 18, because frequently, let's face it, poverty doesn't resonate with those in their kids at their homes, and their illness is generally not an issue. And we said, what's the issue for kids that age? And what we found was that after like first grade, starting going into second and third, especially when homework becomes an issue, the difference between the city and the suburbs really starts to become apparent. And you just see growth in the suburbs and stagnation here. And what we studied and found out was the environment after school with lack of, I mean, let's face it, a kid out in Birmingham, let's say, or something, he's got computer access, he's got internet access, he's got two-parent home, he's got libraries, he's got all these things. Most of those things are missing in a lot of inner-city homes. And so the ability to sort of take what you're learning in school and turn it into something afterwards dries up. So we created, we said, all right, we want to address this issue for kids 8 to 18. At the same time, Mike Duggan came to me and said, there were a lot of, as Dave well knows, because it had to happen while he was mayor, not through any fault of Dave's. I mean, it was financially was impossible. A lot of the rec centers had to close down. Almost all of them had to close down. And unfortunately, they weren't left tended to, and a lot of them were really destroyed. And I looked at 24 different rec centers before we finally found one that we thought we could rebuild. And our concept was, and it was a bold concept at the time, we want to make this not a rec center that's good enough for an impoverished area of Detroit. We want to make this a rec center that's good enough for Troy or Birmingham, whatever. Absolute state of the art, and then make it a carrot for all the kids who want to come saying, you want to play basketball, you want to play football, you want to play baseball here. The price of admission is you've got to sit down with tutors after school for 1 hour, one-on-one minimum, and then you can go play ball. Well, of course, the carrots had to be real carrots, and not real carrots. They had to be like, sports. And I went to Matthew Stafford first because I had a relationship with him. I said he'd want to do something with charity. He ended up building a football field. And then I knew basketball was at the core of it because we had a gym. And Arn came, one of the first things he did when he was in town, came out and sat in this gym, which had not been refurbished. I mean, the whole place still needed a whole lot of work. And he said, I think this is something Tom would want to do. And I said, I don't think the Pistons, the Lions, and the Tigers have ever been under a roof anywhere in the city at the same time. And I said, if my 30 years as a sports writer can accomplish anything, I want that to be it, that I bring all the organizations. And the only reason the Red Wings aren't there is A, it's really hard to build a hockey rink, and B, the Red Wings are owned by the same people who own the Tigers, so it counts.
So they're kind of there.
Yeah, it's a 2-for-1.
Well, number one, I'm personally elated because my 12 years were all downtown at Cobo. And I talked to guys like Isaiah, I talked to guys like Chauncey, who never had a chance to play downtown, and told them what they were missing. The Detroit fan is a different kind of fan. I mean, they are demanding, but they're loving. They're going to support you regardless. And
Mitch, on the other hand, got to have a better record than that. Okay.
Yeah, but having them come back downtown is so important, I think, for the kids in the city, because a lot of our young people and a lot of the adults couldn't get out to the Palace. Basketball is a city game. It's too bad that they were gone away for 40 years or so, but now that they're coming back because of Tom's commitment to the city of Detroit and all the things that Arn is involved in, is great. So I really look forward to it. I think there's an excitement in the city right now. People can't wait until they get back.
That's great. Arn, I think the city has been so excited about the district, everything that's happening. It's really spreading the city out a little bit. You guys announced last week your practice facility goes even a little bit further west. How does that impact, and I know you're looking at different sites, but how do you guys even try and take all of this in when you're making a decision like that? Because it's not just going to be a practice facility, right?
It'll be our business offices and headquarters as well, yeah.
And retail and shopping, I mean, do you guys see all of this it's just going to keep going?
Well, our goal was to be, as I said, in every sense of the word, to make Detroit our home. And it started with our deal to move to the LCA. And
is that what we're calling it, by the way? Is that that's the first time I heard that. Chris, are we good with that?
Little Caesars Arena.
Little Caesars.
Which we're really excited about. And that is really, I think, for everyone, it's not just going to be basketball and ice hockey. It's going to be the center of sports and entertainment. All of the concerts will be at the LCA. So ongoing, that Detroit, this will really be the hub of sports and entertainment in Detroit. And to have all 4 teams playing within a few blocks of each other is incredible. No other city in the United States can make that claim. Even my beloved Philadelphia, all the 4 teams are out on the outskirts of Philadelphia. This is one city where they'll all be in the center city core, where people can walk to the games and walk to the different venues and have all the concerts between the Fox and Little Caesars Arena. It's going to be a fantastic entertainment and sports place, and as a result, it'll be a catalyst for great, restaurants and young people moving into the city. I think it's going to be an incredible area. That's what always attracted me, was that vision that Chris and the Ilitch family had, and that was so powerful and compelling that when we were discussing it, we had to be part of it. We wanted to be part of the action, and it's a great privilege to be partners with the Ilitch family. It's something that really is very meaningful to Tom and to all of us who work for Tom. And to now build our practice facility downtown, it just shows Tom's commitment to the city, that we're backing up what we say. We're going to be all in on Detroit. We're going to move our people here and work here, and hopefully a lot of our young people, I think, will end up living here. Our players, I think, what's been proven in the NBA, once a practice facility is built, most players live within 10 minutes of a practice facility, because that's really where they spend most of their time. So I think this is going to be we're excited about the partnership with Henry Ford Health System. It's going to be a fantastic relationship. They're a great institution, and I think for Tom, starting with the Ilitch family and now with Henry Ford Health System, it really is about formulating partnerships that share our vision, which is to do good things for our fans and obviously win games, but we really want to impact the lives of others in this community in a positive way, and that's really Tom's vision, is that we're a community asset and we want to be responsible to the community, and that's what these partnerships reflect in our commitment here.
Wow. You guys, this is the best panel I've ever been on. Every time you speak, you get a round of applause. I love it. How long did it take after you arrived in Detroit for you to think you wanted to be in the city? Was it immediate?
We talked about it, and I would say it became apparent within a few months that in my head it was the right thing to do. Then there was the deal and all those things that fall from it, but I think very quickly on, there was a cloud over our heads in Auburn Hills. And look, Auburn Hills and the Palace has a great history, and we accomplished much there. We won 3 championships there. It's still a great arena, and it was very difficult, but clearly all the attention, all the pull, the business community, everything that was going on in this community was Detroit. And we could either be by ourselves or we could be with everyone else. And we really wanted to be part of this community, and that's what Tom's vision was. And he said to think big, and that was the challenge to me. He always says, Tom's line is think big, and nothing is impossible. And with that sort of behind me, he gave me the support to really look into it, and obviously things worked out well, and we're really excited about coming down.
That's great.